Grand Theft Auto 5 is a game that needs no introduction. It was released in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2022. Yeah. Though each new iteration of the game has added something new to the table, like, for example, the 2014 next gen release bringing wildlife, peyotes, and graphical improvements, the 2015 release bringing GTA 5 over to PC, and the 2022 release bringing, well, new fire effects, and then those new fire effects coming over to PC again 3 years later. Anyway, each new release of GTA 5 may have brought changes in the graphical department to keep the game fresh, or at least for the very most part. But GTA 5's arcadey and simplistic gameplay remained consistent throughout the game, which becomes clear after over a decade of playing the same game over and over. After a while, the fancy new graphical improvements begin to fade, and what we're left with is the same exact gameplay experience that was a decade ago. While the arcadey nature of GTA 5's gameplay was a design choice, it's clear that times have changed, and games are leaning more into that realism factor, not only in graphics, but in gameplay as well. So today, I wanted to take one of the most iconic elements of GTA 5 and GTA in general, the vehicular crime, and expand and enhance upon the existing architecture with some scripts I developed. I believe the crime and punishment system is outdated. In particular, one thing that made the game so immersion breaking for me was how simplistic the mechanics of crime were. The game was made during a very interesting point in time for gaming, where the technology and hardware became advanced enough to which games were just starting to reach that threshold of realistic graphics and coming out of that uncanny valley, while also remaining arcadey and simplistic in design. One area of focus that really stuck out to me was the vehicle theft. In a game called Grand Theft Auto, you'd think stealing vehicles would be a huge focal point, an integral mechanic to the game. And you'd be right. In GTA 5, it is almost incentivized for you to steal a car. My only issue with it is how easy it is to do it and the lack of consequences that exist. You can steal any car with zero difficulty, drive around for a minute or two while keeping out of the vision of spawning police, and then after the wanted period is over, you are free to do as you please. I wanted to take this mechanic and expand it further by adding lockpicking and hotwiring mechanics, while also adding other features that will bring more immersion to an already decade old game, breathing a feeling of freshness into what is currently a very simplistic design. By adding these mechanics, the weight of committing crimes, such as Grand Theft Autos, feel much grander, and now there are genuine consequences to this. This mod will upgrade the arcadey and forgiving nature of Grand Theft Auto's gameplay by making it more thrilling, where the players is now incentivized to pick their targets wisely and plan ahead. But first, I wanted to quickly show you all how I developed this mod. I had originally made an initial version of this mod that gained some popularity on GTA 5 Mod's website, but I realized there were a lot of flaws in the way I went about developing this script, leading to many bugs, errors, and all around an unpolished product. Because of this, I decided to redevelop my script from scratch, taking what worked in the previous iterations. To do this, I first had to develop a system to change the lock status of parked cars around the player, updating ambiently so that the player is always around locked cars. Here, you can see the segment of code I had to write to accomplish this. I had this running in the tick cycle, updating every 100 milliseconds. Essentially, the script will get all nearby vehicles within a 15-meter radius of the player and check for them being parked and if not previously belonging to the player. For example, where the driver of the vehicle returns null and the vehicle is not marked as stolen. When this was the case, the script would check each vehicle's model hash. And as you can see here, I knew that the big dump trucks in the quarry were incompatible with the script from my previous iteration, and so therefore added a check where the lock status for these dump trucks were set to the vanilla lock status, essentially being left untouched by the script. For all the other valid vehicle types, this section of code designated a lock status to the vehicles under a chance event. Essentially, there would be a 97% chance for any parked vehicle to be locked, hence the lock status being cannot enter, and a 3% chance that they would be unlocked, simulating the nature of parked vehicles in which some owners may forget to lock their cars or couldn't have been bothered to. These vehicles were then added to a list to prevent the code from running over them again. As you can see in this clip, I've used a simple sphere marker to show that the mod works as intended. The white semi-transparent spheres indicates that the vehicle is locked and cannot be entered, while red shows it being unlocked. Now, for implementing the lockpicking and hot wiring mechanics, I used the same code from my previous build, as I was satisfied with its results and functionality. It worked to a degree where I only need to port it over and make little adjustments to fit the new card lock detection model. To activate lockpicking, I had to first know when the game would detect me trying to enter a locked vehicle. To do this, I used a sphere marker above the player's head so that every time the condition player dot is trying to enter a locked vehicle is true, the sphere marker appears. This was a new method I used, as previously I had a detection system which checked if the player was within 3 meters of the vehicle trying to enter. This method, however, did not work so well with large vehicles, such as trucks, which may have been too bulky for the player to be within 3 meters of its coordinates. It also meant that small vehicles, such as Panthers, could be lockpicked from a distance, which would look quite jarring and break the immersion. Next, I decided to add hints to guide the player through the lockpicking process. In this case, whenever the player attempts to open a locked door, the hint will display for 3 seconds, showing the options for either breaking in the window or lockpicking. If the player chooses to lockpick, this help text will display to help guide the player through the lockpicking process. Each hint section also has a copy for gamepad users, where the gamepad controls will be displayed. Here's a full demonstration of both lockpicking and hot wiring elements that flow seamlessly when stealing parked cars. With the main elements of the mod out of the way, I wanted to add some more immersive and lore-friendly elements to build to this mod. Firstly, I needed to add a menu for user configuration and changing settings. As my mod is so ambitious, adding so many different new elements to the game, I understand that not everyone who plays this mod will want to have everything that I've added. So it's important to include a menu so that everyone can configure it to fit their playstyle. Next, I needed to go over the valid vehicle types to ensure that gameplay remains consistent and seamless. For example, lockpicking should not apply for motorbikes because you do not need to break into them. Also, hot wiring should not apply for bicycles or any other vehicle that does not have an ignition. I also decided to remove any lockpicking and hot wiring mechanics out of planes entirely for gameplay purposes. Next, I wanted to add some vehicle mechanics to bring more immersion to gameplay and also make it more challenging. I added automatic brake lights, which turned on automatically when stopped, to simulate real life behavior, adding that slight hint of immersion. Next, I removed a feature by Rockstar Games, being able to steer and control your vehicle while midair. I understand the purpose as to why the devs decided to add this. GTA 5's gameplay style is arcadey and forgiving, giving the players lots of opportunities to bounce back from big mistakes. However, I wanted to follow my intentions, to give the player a harder challenge. In situations where the player is in deep police chases, the consequences to poor driving is now far more significant. Should you roll over onto your side or back, there is now no way to flip the vehicle back to its normal orientation. This mechanic thus punishes poor driving, adding an extra layer to the challenge of evading police. Pinning this mechanic together with mods such as RDE, which enhance police chase ARM behavior, add this newfound immersion and difficulty that was missing in vanilla GTA. Police chases now feel significantly more tense due to heightened consequences, and now raise the skill ceiling for those who are successful at evading police. Next, I wanted to add wanted mechanics to stolen vehicles. This will include things such as the player being wanted if seen driving a very damaged car, or a car with its alarm going off. I made this so that even if the player was able to successfully steal a car out of sight from police, they would still be vulnerable, adding that extra layer of difficulty. Now, police will have an easier time spotting you if the car is heavily damaged, or if your alarm is going off. As you can see in this clip, the player's blip is temporarily whitened to signify that police will spot the vehicle easier as its alarm is on. But when the alarm turns off, it returns back to dark. Another example of this in action is here, where this vehicle was stolen out of sight from police, meaning that the player's blip was darkened to indicate the police do not recognize the vehicle. However, once it is heavily damaged enough, the blip is whitened, indicating that police will recognize the vehicle. Overall, this mod adds a new layer of difficulty when it comes to stealing vehicles and police chases. Now, police pursuits are far more intense, both on foot and vehicular. Gone are the days of easily stealing a vehicle within 5 seconds and getting away from blind police. Now you must actually break into vehicles and play through the lockpicking and hotwiring minigames. Playtesting this mod, I found added so much needed intensity into the chases. Now, should you find yourself evading police, you need to act and act fast. Under the pressure, these minigames become a true test of skill and resilience. If you fail to pick each pin successfully, you will be punished by going back one stage. This costs time, which means that there will be more time for police to search for you, which increases the chances of you getting caught. It will feel like a game of cat and mouse with a ticking time bomb attached to it. If you like what you have seen, you can download this new mod by clicking the link in the description below. This is in no way the final build of this mod. I want to expand my project further with adding new features, such as progression for tools, which will allow you to go from cheap, low end vehicles to high end supercars. I also want to add a car fence, someone who you can sell stolen cars for in exchange for money. Furthermore, I want to add this feature from online, where some NPCs will actually retaliate if you steal their vehicles. However, instead of setting a bounty on the player, I will most likely add some NPCs that will come to attack you randomly. Again, you can check out this mod for yourself in the description. I also highly recommend playing this with RDE or some mod that changes the police chase AI, as I find the vanilla AI to be quite predictable and lackluster. If you like the experimental video format and want to see more content such as this in the future, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and also join my Patreon, which is currently free, for more updates.